Hello and welcome back to I Completed 80s Music with me, the 80s Mixtaper, your museum's assistant, quietly sauntering over to you by the exhibits and explaining the biggest, most interesting and downright weird songs of the 80s. If you're new to the pod, firstly welcome, and here's a little overview just to bring you up to speed. In 2016, in probably the mildest midlife crisis ever, I decided to try and listen to every single UK chart entry for the entire 80s decade, or if you want specific terms of engagement, the 31st of December 1979 to the 31st of December 1989. After a few years and the COVID lockdown happening, by 2021 I'd done it. This podcast is the child of that endeavour. The format is simple. Much like the original quest, we are going end to end in calendar order. Each week, we tackle 6 or 7 songs from the era, the true stories, the lyrics, the drama, the quotes, the videos, and much, much more. Now, unfortunately, due to pesky copyright laws, we can't actually feature the songs on the pod. But to combat that, I've created 13 song playlists for both Spotify and Apple, almost like the compilation albums of the 80s, that you will find in the episode description so that you too can play along at home. What I do, for example, is listen while I'm getting my steps in on a walk and pause the pods to play the songs. And yes, I do listen to myself, not for any vanity reasons, but to sanity check my work, or at least that's my excuse. Just in case the pod links don't work in your podcast platform of choice, you will also find a full track list for each episode, also in the episode description. As usual, if you'd like to drop us a line for any recollections, corrections or stories, you can find me on Instagram, X and TikTok as the 80s Mixtaper, or you can email into completed80s@aol.com. Anyway, it's February 1981. Let's get back to the music. So we're back, picking up where we left off with John Lennon, still reeling from the gut punch of his death in December 1980. Last time, we were knee-deep in Just Like Starting Over, the comeback single that turned into a posthumous chart topper, a bittersweet victory lap for a man who'd just stepped back into the spotlight. Now we're diving into Woman, the second single from Double Fantasy, released in January 1981, barely a month after Mark David Chapman's Bullets stole Lennon from the world. This is John at his most vulnerable, his most apologetic, his most John. A love letter to Yoko Ono, to all women, and maybe even to himself, wrapped in a melody that's pure Beatles shimmer. This is playlist 19, track 1. Press play now. The UK charts tell the story of a nation in mourning. Woman hit the scene on January the 16th, 1981, and by February the 7th, it was number 1, holding the top spot for 2 weeks and lingering in the charts for 11. It was Lennon's third consecutive UK chart topper in 7 weeks, following Just Like Starting Over, and then the re-released Imagine. Think about that, 3 number 1s in less than 2 months, all fueled by grief, love, and the unshakable aura of John Lennon. In the US, it peaked at number 2 on the Billboard's Hot 100, stuck behind REO Speedwagon's Keep On Loving You and Blondie's Rapture for 3 agonising weeks. New Zealand gave it 5 weeks at number 1. Woman is Lennon's ode to Yoko, but it's bigger than that. He wrote it in Bermuda, summer of 1980, struck by a lightning bolt of clarity about what women, his wife especially, meant to him. In a Rolling Stone interview days before his death, he said it hit him one sunny afternoon how much he'd taken for granted. The song opens with a whisper, for the other half of the sky, a nod to a Chinese proverb. Then the lyrics spill out, raw and unguarded. Woman, I can hardly express my mixed emotions at my thoughtlessness. After all, I'm forever in your debt. This is John post Lost Weekend, that 18-month bender with May Pang in the mid-70s, owning his screw-ups, begging for absolution. He called it a grown-up version of the Beatles' Girl from Rubber Soul, and you can hear it, the jangly guitars, the breathy vocals, the same ache for connection, but wiser, wearier. The track itself is a masterclass in less is more. Recorded August and September 1980, produced by Lennon, Yoko and Jack Douglas. It's got John on vocals and acoustic guitar, Earl Slick and Hugh McCracken on electric, Tony Levine on bass, George Small on piano and Rhodes, and Andy Newmark on drums. Michelle Simpson, Cassandra Wooten, Cheryl Mason-Jacks and Eric Troyer layer in those lush backing vocals, giving it that warm, almost choral glow. The melody's so clean it hurts, every note polished but never slick. The chorus, that well, do-do-do-do-do, doesn't need words, it's just pure, simple feeling. The context is important here because this song doesn't exist in a vacuum. Lennon's death turned Double Fantasy into a shrine, and Woman was its heart. Released January the 12th in the US and January the 16th in the UK, with Yoko's Beautiful Boys as the B-side, it carried the weight of a world that wasn't ready to let John go. The promotional video, cobbled together by Yoko in January 81, is a dagger. John and Yoko strolling through Central Park, near what would become Strawberry Fields, shot by Ethan Russell just weeks before the murder. You watch it, and it's like spying on a private moment you weren't meant to see, knowing what's coming. What makes Woman sting is how it balances the personal and the universal. It's John saying sorry to Yoko, sure, but it's also him wrestling with his own chauvinism, shaped by the feminist fire Yoko lit under him. Compare this to his earlier stuff, Run for Your Life, with its jealous snarl, and you see a man who's grown, who's trying. The line, "Woman, I know you understand," the little child inside the man, is peak Lennon, self-aware, a little cheeky but dead serious. He's not just singing to Yoko, he's singing to every woman who's ever put up with a man's nonsense. And Lennon had caused a lot of nonsense, and that's putting it very politely. And yeah, it's sentimental, maybe even sappy, but that's the point. Lennon wasn't hiding anymore. He'd spent the 70s peeling back layers, screaming on Plastic Ono Band, raging on Sometime in New York City, and then he'd gone away. And by 1980, he was ready to be soft, to be honest. Woman is him planting a flag. Love is messy, love is humbling, love is worth it. The UK charts prove it landed. The world was mourning John, but they were also hearing him. This was a moment, a collective exhale for a man who'd given us everything. For track 2, an instrumental. We love an instrumental on this show. And for this one, we delve into a particular moment in time. It's 1981, and the Philly soul sound that ruled the 70s is starting to fade, like a Polaroid left in the sun. Disco's on its last legs, synths are creeping in, and MFSB, those studio wizards that lay down the smoothest grooves for Philadelphia International Records, are dropping their final album. The title track, Mysteries of the World, is a glittering jazzy funk gem that feels like a last hurrah for a crew that defined an era. Let's delve into the song, this band, and why it's worth your time, because it's a story of sweat, soul, and a bass line that slaps harder than any Philly cheesecake debate. Press play now. Firstly, for anyone in Britain, who the hell are MFSB? The name stands for Mother, Father, Sister, Brother, a nod to the family vibe of this massive collective. Over 30 studio musicians strong, based at Philly's Sigma Sound Studios. Formed in 1971, they were the house band for Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff's Philadelphia International label, the architects of the Philly soul sound. This motley crew backed everyone, the OJs, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, the Stylistics, the Spinners, Billy Paul, even Wilson Pickett. If you've ever danced to Love Train or Ain't No Stopping Us Now, you've heard MFSB's DNA. Their roster was a murderer's row of talent, drummers like Earl Young, who basically invented the disco beat, guitarist Norman Harris and Bobby Eli, bassist Ronnie Barker, vibraphonist Vince Montana Jr., and a rotating cast of strings and horns led by arranger Don Ronaldo. They were the secret sauce behind the lush, orchestrated sound that made Philly soul a global force. By 1972, they started recording under their own name, and in 74 they hit pay dirt with TSOP, The Sound of Philadelphia, the Soul Train theme, which topped the Billboard Hot 100 and R&B charts, sold over 1 million copies, and snagged a gold disc. That track became disco's blueprint. But by 1980, the world had changed. Disco was a punchline, Philly soul was losing steam, and MFSB was in flux. Some members had jumped ship to Soul Soul Records, forming the Soul Soul Orchestra. Gamble and Huff rebuilt with a new rhythm section. drummer Charles Collins, bassist Michael Foreman, guitarist Dennis Harris, and a secret weapon, Dexter Wansel, a synth-savvy producer who'd been dropping cosmic funk bombs like Life on Mars. Their final album, Mysteries of the World, released in 1980 on the TSOP imprint, was a pivot. It kept MFSB's silky soul roots, but leaned into jazz funk and synth textures, with Wansel co-writing and producing much of it. The title track, released as a single in 1981, was the standout. A 5-minute instrumental, plus a dreamy string intro that's equal parts sophisticated and street. Mysteries of the World is a masterclass in type musicianship. Wansel, who composed it, called it an experiment. Quote, I composed it in an effort to blend a funky groove along with synthesizers and orchestral sounds. He layered 3 synths, Oberheim 4-voice, Poly Moog, and the iconic ARP 2600V over a lithe rhythm section, strings, harp and flute. The result is a syncopated hypnotic groove with a bass line that feels like it's winking at you. The track blasts with a swagger, keyboards ripple like heat waves, and the whole thing moves with a discipline that's almost military. It's jazzy but not pretentious, funky but not raw, a polished diamond of a track. Wansel recorded the rhythm and orchestral parts first, then overdubbed the synths, creating a sound that's both timeless and futuristic. No lyrics to quote here, it's all vibe. Chart-wise, the single only made subtle waves in the UK where it peaked at number 36, a respectable showing for a group past their commercial prime and less known over the pond. Stateside, it didn't crack the Billboard Hot 100 but found a home in clubs and on jazz funk radio. Fans on Discogs and Reddit still rave about it, with some calling it the pinnacle of MFSB's later work, though others argue it lacks the raw grit of their 70s output. Either way, it's a cult classic, sampled and remixed by DJs who know a good groove when they hear one. This is the sound of a band refusing to go quietly. MFSB could have coasted on nostalgia, but with Wansel's vision, they pushed forward, blending their old school soul with new school synths. It's a bridge between the 70s and the 80s, between disco's excess and the sleek grooves of the future. You hear the history in every note, the Sigma Sound sessions, the Soul Train line, the Philly streets, but you also hear ambition, a group still hungry to innovate. And man, that bass line. It's the kind of track you play at a rooftop party at dusk when the city's buzzing and the air feels electric. MFSB disbanded in 1985, 3 years after Teddy Pendergrass's tragic car accident, which shook the Philly soul scene. Their legacy lives on though. Love is the Message is in the Dance Music Hall of Fame, and My Mood still closes the Friday 6pm news on DC's WRC TV. Mysteries of the World was their swan song, and the title track is a fitting capstone, a reminder that even in their final act, MFSB could still make magic. So fire up your turntable and let this track take you somewhere. This is a 5-minute moment, a mystery worth solving. For track 3, and it's a favourite of mine, prepare to fill your ears with the neon-soaked trumpet-blaring chaos of 1981, where a band from Liverpool called the Teardrop Explodes dropped a single that feels like it's defining the word urgent. Reward is the song, and it's a 3-minute burst of post-punk, neo-psychedelic swagger that hit number 6 on the UK singles chart in January 1981. This is our first dance with the Teardrop Explodes, so strap in for the biography, the context, and the unhinged energy of a track that sounds like it's sprinting through a kaleidoscope. The Teardrop Explodes formed in Liverpool in 1978, rising from the ashes of a short-lived outfit called the Crucial Three, which included frontman Julian Cope, Ian McCulloch, later of Echo and the Bunnymen, and Pete Wiley of Wah. They were part of Liverpool's late 70s post-punk scene, a gritty creative hotbed that also birthed bands like Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark. Cope, a lanky wild-eyed visionary obsessed with krautrock, Syd Barrett and The Doors, was the band's gravitational centre. He teamed up with drummer Gary Dwyer, keyboardist David Balfe, who doubled as co-manager and later founded Food Records, and a rotating cast that included guitarist Michael Finkler, later replaced by Alan Gill. By 1981, the lineup for Reward featured Cope on vocals and rhythm guitar, Troy Tate on lead guitar, Alfie Aegis on bass, Jeff Hammer on keyboards, and Dwyer on drums. The band's sound started as a modernised take on late 60s psychedelic pop, think bubblegum trance as some called it, before veering into experimental drug-fueled territory. Their debut album Kilimanjaro in 1980 hit number 24 on the UK albums chart and set the stage for their brief, chaotic reign. So Reward, this song wasn't on the original UK release of Kilimanjaro, but got tacked on to some later pressings after it blew up. It peaked at number 6 in the UK and number 11 in Ireland and became their biggest hit. The track's origin story is pure teardrop madness. Alan Gill, before bailing in November 1980, he wasn't into touring, and Cope later said he was afraid to compete, brought in a near-finished song. Cope and Balfe reworked it, with Cope penning the lyrics and obsessing over the mix. The result is a sonic Molotov cocktail, a bass line that struts like it owns the room, trumpets inspired by Love's Forever Changes, and Cope's unhinged vocals. The opening line, "Bless my cotton socks, I'm in the news," captures Cope's exhilaration at the band's rising fame. Those trumpets, though, they're the secret sauce, blaring with a northern soul swagger that Enemies Paul DeNoyer called absolutely unignorable when he named it Single of the Week in January 1981. Let's talk lyrics straight from the source. Here's a chunk from the first verse. "Bless my cotton socks, I'm in the news. The king sits on his face, but it's all assumed. All wrapped up the same. They can't have it, you can't have it, I can't have it too, until I learn to accept my reward." What does it mean? Who cares? It's Cope, high on LSD and charisma, spitting surreal poetry over a rhythm section that feels like it's chasing him down an alley. The song's energy is relentless, like a punk band gate-crashing a Motown review. Cope himself admitted in a 2015 Guardian interview that he was the acid king by this point, riding imaginary horses to the studio and banging the trumpet into his face during their Top of the Pops performance. Balfe, semi-estranged from the band, mimed the trumpet on the iconic TV slot, a moment of absurd loyalty amongst their infighting. The UK was deep in Thatcher's shadow, with economic strife and social unrest simmering. Post-punk was morphing into new wave, and bands like the Teardrop Explodes were caught between punk's raw edge and pop's glossy allure. Reward landed like a glitter bomb on top of the Pops, with Cope's shaggy hair and Alfie Aegis's cherubic dance moves winning over smash hits readers. The B-side, Strange House in the Snow, is a discordant piano and violin howl that feels like the band's id unleashed, proof that they weren't just chasing chart glory. Meanwhile, their American tour that year was a mess of bad deals and Cope's LSD-fueled isolation, as detailed in his autobiography Head On. Back home, they were pop stars, but across the pond, they were psychedelic voyagers, fueled by a 1,000-trip bag from a Grateful Dead roadie. Why does Reward still hit? It's the tension in the track. The trumpets scream joy, but Cope's delivery hints at something unravelling. The band was a house of cards. By late 1981, their second album, Wilder, which hit number 29 in the UK, leaned darker, and they'd splinter by 1982 amid Cope's and Balfe's creative clashes. Reward captures them at their peak, teetering between genius and collapse. It's a song that doesn't just play, it demands you chase it, grinning like a fool. And those horns, they're still unignorable. Next up, one of my personal favourite one-hit wonders from the early decade, when the UK was a mess of post-punk grit and new wave shimmer, and a little London outfit called The Passions dropped a single that still got this ghostly, hypnotic pull. I'm in love with a German film star. It's a song that feels chic in a brutalist way, all moody and glamorous. We're talking about a track that hit number 25 in the UK charts and became the band's only chart entry. It's a fleeting moment of magic from a group that flickered bright and then vanished. This is track 4. The Passions, formed in January 1978 in London, came up during the punk to new wave pivot. Fronted by Barbara Gogan, whose voice is like a cool hand on a fevered forehead, the band was rounded out by guitarist Clive Timperley, drummer Richard Williams, and bassist Claire Bidwell initially, with Dave Agar stepping in on bass by the time of this single. They were a gang of misfits trying to carve out a space in a scene dominated by the likes of Susie Sue and Robert Smith. Their first album, Michael and Miranda in 1980, was a flop, despite some Cure tour support from producer Chris Parry. It's not a bad record, just kind of lost in the noise of that era. But then something clicked. They switched to Polydor, stabilised their lineup, and in early 1981, they stumbled into this song that, as Agar put it, almost seemed to write itself during a rehearsal at Clink Studios in Southwark. I'm in Love with a German Film Star, released on January the 23rd in 1981, is a post-punk gem that's less about aggression and more about atmosphere. It's got this hypnotic, repetitive drum bass pulse, Richard Williams and David Agar locking in like a heartbeat. Clive Timperley's Echoplex guitar swirls around like cigarette smoke, all echo and shimmer, maybe the best use of a delay pedal this side of the edge. And then there's Barbara Gogan's voice, sensual and detached, singing lyrics that feel like a Polaroid of a fleeting crush. The opening lines, I'm in love with a German film star I once saw in a bar, sitting in a corner in imperfect clothes, trying not to pose. It's not about Klaus Kinski or some other A-list heartthrob. No, it's about Steve Rodent Connolly, a British roadie for The Clash and Sex Pistols, who had bit parts in German films and played the Joker in a 1978 miniseries called Das Ding. That's the kind of oddball detail that makes this song feel so human, so specific. The lyrics, all penned by Gogan, paint this guy as a glamorous ghost. For the cameras and the girls, it's a glamorous world. There's no traditional verse-chorus split, just this dreamy flow that builds to a choral climax where Gogan's backed by the band's backing vocals, repeating her love in a kind of ecstatic haze. The production by Peter Wilson gives it this crystalline edge with an unusual bass drum sound run through a vocoder for extra weirdness. It's a song that's both intimate and cinematic, like you're eavesdropping on someone's private obsession in a neon-lit dive bar on a night where the rain is heavy and the asphalt shines. Chart-wise, it peaked at number 25 in February 1981, a modest hit, but a big deal for a band that had been scraping by. It landed them on top of the pops, where Gogan's cool detachment and Timperley's pointerless guitar work made for a hypnotic TV moment. The song later found a home on their second album, 30,000 Feet Over China, a record that's got more polish than their debut, but still didn't break them big. The Passions were a band that felt like they were always on the cusp of something huge, but it never quite happened. This song is great because of the vibe it produces. It's new wave, but not giddy with its own wit and irony. Post-punk, but not dour. It's got this glamour that's scuffed around the edges, like a thrift store fur coat. And it's been covered to death. Foo Fighters did a faithful take in 2005. Sam Taylor Wood hit number 1 on the UK dance singles chart with a Pet Shop Boys produced version in 2008. And bands like Nouvelle Vague and Dubstar have had their go too. Even Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories used it on its Emotion 98.3 station, cementing its retro cool. But the dream didn't last. During the promo tour, Gogan and Timperley clashed. Rumours say over politics, like a mini Clash implosion. Timperley, the band's sonic architect, bailed. They tried to keep going with a new guitarist and a keyboardist for their 1982 album Sanctuary, but it was too scattered, missing that Gogan-Timperley spark. By 1983, the Passions were done. Gogan faded from the spotlight, and the band became a footnote, albeit a beloved one in new wave circles. Listening now, I'm in Love with a German Film Star is an early contender for favourite track of the year for me. It's alive, shimmering with that early 80s mix of hope and melancholy. It's a song about longing for someone just out of reach, set against a backdrop of echoey guitars and a world that feels both glamorous and grimy, people in trench coats in a cafe society making eyes at each other. The Passions may not have conquered the charts, but they left behind this one perfect thing, a song that still pulls you into its orbit, makes you feel like you're falling for a stranger in a bar, chasing a glow that's already fading. For track 5, we're back with Rainbow, picking up where we left off with All Night Long in 1980, which we heard all the way back in episode 6.5, that sleazy, strutting banger from Down to Earth. That was Rainbow in transition, with Graham Bonnet's leather-lunged wail and Ritchie Blackmore's guitar sorcery leaning into more commercial hard rock sounds. But by 1981, things have shifted yet again, big time. Bonnet's out, Joe Turner is in, and Rainbow's dropping I Surrender, their biggest UK hit ever, peaking at number 3 on the UK singles chart. This is Rainbow chasing pop metal glory, and wow, do they catch it. So, All Night Long was Rainbow shedding some of their Dio-era fantasy metal skin, but I Surrender is a full-on reinvention. Ritchie Blackmore, the wizard of riffs, is still the mastermind, but he's got a new frontman in Joe Turner, a guy with a voice like a polished chrome bumper, smooth, shiny and built for radio. Turner, fresh from the AOR outfit Fandango, steps in after Bonnet splits, reportedly fed up with Blackmore's control freak tendencies and the band's poppier direction. Bonnet even laid down some of the backing vocals for I Surrender before bailing, but Turner's the one who brings it home, his lead vocals dripping with heart-on-sleeve urgency. The song, released as a single in January 1981, is Rainbow's slickest move yet. And Blackmore's not shy about it. He's openly crushing on Foreigner's arena rock sheen at this point, and you can hear it in every gleaming chord. Russ Ballard, ex-Argent guitarist and songwriting hired gun, pens I Surrender, and it's a masterclass in economy. The guy's got a knack for crafting hooks that stick like gum on your shoe. Think Since You've Been Gone, which Rainbow also turned into gold. Here, he hands them a love song that's equal parts surrender and swagger. I surrender to your heart, babe. Do anything that you want me to. Those lyrics, they're not Shakespeare, but they don't need to be. Turner sells the pleading with a voice that's half crooner, half rocker, and Blackmore's guitar lines, those soaring melodic stabs, give it wings. The chorus is pure dopamine. I surrender, giving up the role of pretender. It's the kind of earworm that had the UK radio DJs hitting repeat and fans storming record shops. The Difficult to Cure album, Rainbow's fifth, is a turning point. Out goes drummer Cozy Powell alongside Bonnet, and in comes Bobby Rondinelli, pounding the skins with arena-ready gusto. Roger Glover's still on bass, Don Airey's on keys, and the whole band's leaning into this polished, MTV-friendlier sound. The album itself hits number 3 on the UK albums chart, matching the single's peak, and it's no fluke. I Surrender is the lead single, backed by an instrumental B-side, which I'm going to murder my German here, Vielleicht das nächste Zeit, which means maybe next time, written by Blackmore and Airey. Fun fact, Blackmore botches the German title, which should be, and here we go again, Vielleicht beim nächsten Mal, and they fix it on later pressings. But I Surrender wasn't even Rainbow's first crack at the song. Heavy metal underdogs Praying Mantis were in the studio, laying down their version, when word came down that Rainbow, the bigger name, got dibs. Praying Mantis had to shelve it, though they finally released their take in 2024 on Defiance. Even crazier, the song's not originally Rainbow's at all. Head East dropped it as a single in 1980, but it flopped. Rainbow's version, though, is the one that sticks, with Turner's vocals and Blackmore's production having turned it into a juggernaut. The music video, pure 1981 cheese. Picture the band on a darkened stage, red lights glowing, Turner belting it out while Blackmore shreds with that effortless cool. It's less epic quest and more let's sell this single. And sell it did. The song's got legs too. Covers pop up everywhere. Finnish singer Markku Arro's 1981 take Ensi Kerta, Stratovarius in 2001, At Vance in 2002, even Tove Lo as Sue Ellen in 2009. But Rainbow's version is untouchable, a snapshot of a band at a crossroads balancing their hard rock roots with pop metal ambition. What makes I Surrender endure is its shameless sincerity. It's not subtle, but neither is love, or Blackmore's ego. This is Rainbow saying, we're still gods, but we're going to make you sing along, and you do, every time. Next up for track 6, one of the most secretly influential bands of the 80s. Let's introduce them. Buckle up, because we're diving into the jittery, polyrhythmic question mark that is Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads, released in February 1981. This is our first dance with the band, so we're going to go through their story, the song's creation, its UK chart, and those precise lyrics that come out like a sermon from a sweaty, wide-eyed preacher. Let's go. Talking Heads formed in 1975 in New York City, birthed in the grimy, glittery petri dish of the downtown art punk scene. David Byrne on vocals and guitar, Chris Frantz on drums, Tina Weymouth on bass, and Jerry Harrison on keyboards and guitar met at the Rhode Island School of Design, except Harrison, who joined later after cutting his teeth with Modern Lovers. They were art school kids, not rock star posers. Think CBGB's regulars sharing stages with Ramones and Blondie, but less about leather jackets and more about nervous energy and angular riffs. Their debut, Talking Heads 77, dropped in 1977 with Psycho Killer, a twitchy banger that made them critical darlings but not quite chart champs. More songs about buildings and food followed in 1978 and Fear of Music in 1979, each sharper, funkier, weirder, with Brian Eno, yes, that Brian Eno, producing and nudging them towards something bigger. By 1980, they were ready to explode with Remain in Light, their fourth album, a dense Afrobeat-infused masterpiece that birthed Once in a Lifetime. Now, Remain in Light was a substantial pivot. The band plus Eno holed up in Nassau's Compass Point studios, jamming like mad scientists. They'd been turned on to Fela Kuti's Afrobeat, those hypnotic layered rhythms, and wanted to weave that into their post-punk DNA. Eno, the wizard of ambient and oblique strategies, pushed them to improvise loop and layer. The result, a sound that's both chaotic and tight, like a kaleidoscope spinning in a blender. Once in a Lifetime was the lead single, released in January 1981 via Sire Records, and it's the song that defines this era of Talking Heads, maybe their whole career. The song itself is 4 minutes and 19 seconds of existential panic dressed up as a dance track. David Byrne's vocals don't sing so much as preach, channeling radio evangelist he'd recorded and studied. He told Time Out that the lyrics came from sermons, picking phrases that felt like interesting directions. The result is a narrative about waking up to your own life and going, how did I get here? It's not judgmental, but it is bewildered. The music is a polyrhythmic beast. Eno had some band members start on the 3 instead of the 1, creating what he called a funny balance with 2 gravitational centres. Jerry Harrison's synth line slinks like a snake, and his Hammond organ climax nods to the Velvet Underground's What Goes On. Tina Weymouth's bass is funky but eerie. Chris Frantz's drums lock it down, and Byrne's guitar scratches sound like a nervous tick. It's busy but sparse, with barely any chord changes, yet it feels like a wall of sound. Afrobeat meets reggae meets funk meets new wave. The lyrics are precise and haunting. And you may find yourself living in a shotgun shack. And you may find yourself in another part of the world. And you may find yourself behind the wheel of a large automobile. And you may find yourself in a beautiful house with a beautiful wife. And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here? The chorus, letting the days go by, let the water hold me down, is a mantra, half drowning, half dancing. Later, same as it ever was, same as it ever was. It's about autopilot, the unconscious grind of life, and that moment you snap awake and question everything. Byrne told NPR, it's about operating half awake until you're like, how did I get here? No cynicism, just a dadaist nudge to embrace the absurdity. Chart-wise, Once in a Lifetime did well, but it wasn't a blockbuster. It hit number 14 on the UK charts in March 1981, a modest peak for a song now considered iconic. It didn't crack the US Billboard Hot 100, but bubbled under at 103 in February 1981. MTV launching that August changed the game. The video, more on that in a sec, got heavy rotation, giving the song legs. In the UK, it went silver in 2018, gold in 2021, and platinum in 2023, proof of its slow burn legacy. A live version from Stop Making Sense in 1984 hit number 91 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1986, showing the song's staying power. That video though, wow, it is a cultural artifact. Directed by Byrne and Tony Basil, yep, Mickey Tony Basil. It's Byrne in a boxy suit and horn-rimmed glasses, jerking like a possessed puppet against a chroma key background. Basil in the documentary MTV Ruled the World said Byrne studied trance movements, church rituals, snake handlers at UCLA and USC, wanting to move like an actor, not a dancer. He spasms, gestures, sweats, lip syncs while clips of religious rituals flicker. It's hilarious, unsettling and groundbreaking. Spin's readers voted it to the 6th best video of the 1980s, and Rolling Stone ranked it number 81 in 2021. The Stop Making Sense live version, with Byrne nailing the liquid robot moves, cemented its legend. Culturally, Once in a Lifetime is a titan. NPR called it one of the 100 most important American musical works of the 20th century. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame named it one of the 500 songs that shaped rock and roll. Rolling Stone slotted it at number 28 on their 2021 500 greatest song lists. It's been covered, sampled, parodied. Weird Al even mimicked the video for UHF. Kermit the Frog did it on Muppets Tonight in 1996, big suit and all. It played over the titles of Down and Out in Beverly Hills in 1986. For me, this song is a time machine. I was a tiny 2.5-year-old when it was released, but hearing it as a kid, probably on some 80s radio station that my dad had on, felt like stumbling into a parallel universe. It's catchy but disorienting, like a funhouse mirror of pop. The way a song can be both a party and a panic attack, how it lodges in your brain like a philosophical earworm. Talking Heads, more than just talented musicians, they were sculpting a worldview, art as absurdity, life as a question mark. The band's arc after Remain in Light is wild. Speaking in Tongues in 1983 gave us Burning Down the House, their biggest hit. Little Creatures in 1985 had And She Was, and of course Road to Nowhere, all of which we'll hear on this pod. They split in 1991 with Byrne's solo career and his work with Eno like My Life in the Bush of Ghosts, keeping the spirit alive. France and Weymouth's Tom Tom Club scored hits in 81 and 82, and Harrison did solo stuff too, but Once in a Lifetime is their creative peak, at least. A song that's still asking us to wake up, look around, and wander. Finally today, we end with my mum's absolute favourite. A particular highlight of my wedding day was hearing the DJ drop the track Copacabana, watching my mum slip off her heels and then hit the dance floor like a whirling Latino dervish. Barry Manilow, the guy who turned schmaltz into an art form, the piano man who could make a room full of strangers cry over a ballad about surviving life's storms. We're diving into his 1980-81 single, I Made It Through the Rain, a song that's less about literal weather and more about staring down the void and coming out the other side. This is track 7. Barry Manilow, born Barry Allen Pincus on June the 17th, 1943 in Brooklyn, New York, grew up in a working-class neighbourhood where dreams were more like dares. His dad, a truck driver of Irish descent, split when Barry was 2, and his mum's maiden name, Manilow, became his own a few years later. Raised by Russian Jewish grandparents, he was a kid who found solace in music, first the accordion, then the piano, where he became a prodigy of sorts. His stepfather introduced him to jazz and Broadway, planting seeds for the dramatic orchestral sound that would define him. High school at Eastern District in Brooklyn led to a brief stint at City College, then the New York College of Music and Juilliard, where he honed his craft while working at CBS to pay the bills. By the late 1960s, he was arranging songs for an off-Broadway musical, The Drunkard, and writing jingles for McDonald's and Band-Aid. Yeah, the guy who'd later sell 85 million records was once hawking I'm Loving It precursors. The early 70s were Barry's hustle years. He played piano in nightclubs, met Bette Midler, and became her music director, co-producing her first 2 albums. His own debut, Barry Manilow 1973, was a slow burn, but Barry Manilow 2 in 1974 exploded with Mandy, a number one Billboard hit that made him a household name. The 70s were his kingdom, 13 number one adult contemporary hits, including I Write the Songs, which he didn't write, Looks Like We Made It, and Copacabana, a Grammy-winning disco banger. Critics sneered, calling his style syrupy, but fans ate it up. And peers like Frank Sinatra saw the future in him, saying, he's next. Barry's live shows, think Broadway in 76-77, earned him a Tony Award. They were pure theatre, and his TV specials snagged Emmys in 77 and 2006. By 1980, he'd sold millions, but his self-titled album Barry marked a shift, peaking at number 15, not cracking the top 10 for the first time. That's where I Made It Through the Rain comes in. Released in November 1980 as the lead single from Barry, I Made It Through the Rain wasn't born in Barry Manilow's head. Gerard Kenny and Dre Shepherd wrote it in 1979 for Kenny's album Made It Through the Rain, a UK top 20 record crafting a tale of a struggling musician who never quits. Barry heard it, loved it, but wanted it broader, not just for artists but for anyone clawing through life. He brought in Jack Feldman and Bruce Sussman to rework the lyrics, keeping the music intact, and the result was a universal anthem of resilience. Recorded at Evergreen Studios in Burbank, it's got that Manilow DNA, lush strings, a piano-driven melody, and a slow build to a soaring finish that feels like the sun breaking through the clouds. Billboard called it contemplative, with one of Manilow's most dynamic finishes, while Record World praised its resounding vocal performance and the song's string grandeur. In the US, it hit number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100, his 11th and final top 10 there, and number 4 on the Adult Contemporary. Across the pond, I Made It Through the Rain entered the UK singles chart on January the 24th, 1981, peaking at a modest number 37 and spending 6 weeks in the top 75. Not a massive hit, but it lingered, especially after John Barrowman's 2009 cover, sparked by BBC Radio 1's Chris Moyles, revived interest. The song's metaphor, life as a storm, survival as a triumph, lands clean. Songwriter Sheila Davis in I Write the Songs lauded it for sticking to its figurative lane. Rain and clouds mean trouble, never literal weather, making it a masterclass in metaphor. The end of the chorus, I made it through the rain and found myself respected by the others who got rained on too and made it through. That's the gut punch, community and survival. It's not just I made it, it's we all did. Barry's delivery, raw and earnest, sells it. He's not preaching, he's confessing. It's intimate, like he's confessing life's challenges to you over coffee. But by the bridge, he's belting and you're ready to march into your own storm. This is arguably Barry at his final charting peak, vulnerable yet triumphant, theatrical but real. The 80s were shifting, MTV launches in 1981, and synth pop was creeping in, but Barry doubled down on human struggle, no gimmicks. He sang it for Elizabeth Taylor at her 60th birthday in 1992, a nod to her own stormy life. It's a song for anyone who's been knocked down and got up, from Brooklyn to Birmingham. Sure, critics called him corny, but 85 million records don't lie. He's the guy who made you feel okay crying in your car. This wasn't his biggest hit, but it's his soul distilled. The Barry album went platinum despite its chart dip, and I Made It Through the Rain carried it. Barry kept going, jazz albums, more Broadway, even dodging tabloid rumours about porn stars in 89. He's still out there touring in 2025, aged 81, proving he's the dreamer who made it through. And he made my mum dance at our wedding. We have reached the halfway point of playlist 19. So what do we have coming up in the next episode? Well, we have The Jam still dominating the charts with one of their most pithy and charming songs. We have possibly the most questionable number one novelty hit of the entire decade. We say hello again to Neil Diamond and finish the episode sailing with Christopher Cross amongst others. As usual, Do follow us on your podcast platform of choice to get the latest episode, and if you could leave us a cheeky review, it would really help. Have a great week. Take care.